Thank you for coming to our presentation about volunteerism and adding sort of a, developing country, some developing country information for the seminar. Jackson, you could all read about him in the program. He's a remarkable man. I was thinking about how would I introduce him, and I was thinking that when the angels in heaven get depressed and they want inspiration, they just look down and watch Jackson in his daily life, and they feel good. So with that, you can talk, Jackson.
Wow. So how do you follow that? That is a setup. You just set me up now. But what I will try to do, we have people over there. You can join us closer if you want to. Oh, the tech staff. I want to thank the tech staff for making sure that our equipment is working. Paul, thank you for that short, sweet, and inspiring introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, you are all experts in your fields, so I don't feel worthy to be a speaker. But what I will try to do this afternoon is to take you on a journey to Uganda. Because I know you are experts in so many areas, and what I will try to do is add on your expertise. So when you walk out of here today, you will know something about Uganda, you will know something about children in Uganda, and hopefully by the end of my 20 minutes talk, you will also go home thinking, I want to go to Uganda one day. So if I can accomplish those three things, I would have done my job. Then when we are done, Paul and I will be here for you to question us. All your journalistic instincts, we want them to kick in and ask us questions, tough questions. Some of the things I will not be able to cover, we will cover them during question and answer. Some of the things you think are not questions worth asking, just ask them. If we don't have an answer, we will find out an answer and send it to you. So where do we begin? Be the change you want to be in the world is how we titled my short remarks today. And when I speak to people like you, I am preaching to the choir because you've already accomplished so much in your areas. So what I will try to do is go into my own life and tell you a testimony, share with you where I've come from, and hopefully some of it will link with what you are doing, or we can work together to make this world a better place. But you are already change agents. You've already done so much. By your presence here, you are also saying, I want to learn more. So I was born and raised in Uganda. Uganda is a tiny landlocked country in East Africa. When I speak to students, I always tell them to repeat after me that Africa is not a country. If you want to practice, we can do it. Africa is not a country. Thank you. Because many people don't know that. And so people meet me and say, hey, you are from Africa, right? Like, yeah, I am from Africa. You're from America? Yeah, no, I'm from Michigan. Like, there you go. You are from Michigan and I'm from Africa. Why are you not from America? So Africa is not a country, it is a continent. 52 different countries, different presidents, different demarcations. In fact, to go from Uganda to Ghana, you need a visa. Yes. And you cannot just drive from Uganda and cross into Rwanda. You stop on the border and have to prove that you're going there legally. That's like going from USA to Mexico. But it's more complicated on that border. So in this tiny little country called Uganda, the population of this country stands at about 36 million people. The land in Uganda would compare it to the state of Oregon, Portland, Oregon. That's kind of the size. 36 million people, half of that population is below 14 years of age. So if you are over 40, don't raise your hand. If you are over 40 in my country, life expectancy is 46 years of age. So it's a young country. Why do you have a population that young? This man you see here, 44 years of age, I'm counting my 2 years. If you don't hear from me in 3 years, you know I've met life expectancy in Uganda. I'm happy to go. I was born in this tiny village. My parents, mom and dad, Eric and Janet Kaguri, still live in the village where I was born and raised. They had 5 children. Mom and dad never went to school. They cannot read or write in English. 0. They have never been to school in their lives until I built a school there. They have seen a school, but they've never been to school. So to many publications you read, they will say, Mom and Dad are illiterate. I don't agree with that. Mom and Dad read in their local language, and so they are not illiterate. But look at what they have done too. They sent all 5 children to school. So Mom and Dad always tell you they have so many degrees, because they count all their children's degrees. So they are very smart people. My dad would have made a good lawyer. If you don't think that's the truth, read my book, A School for My Village. You will see how smart this man is. Mom and Dad also knew that for them to break the cycle of poverty, which had gone through generations in their lives, they had to educate 5 children of their own. So educating a child in Uganda, number 1, is to help the child break the cycle of poverty. Number 2, you are investing for your future. So Mom and Dad knew that when they send 5 children to school, 1 will come back and be their health care. There's no Obamacare in Uganda. Another one will be their investment. There's no 401k and Wall Street in Uganda. Another one will be the housing. There's no HUD in Uganda. The next one will be food, provision, then extra activities. Hair, glasses, shoes, jacket and tie would be the 5th child. That's me, the young one. So others, we are going to make an investment in their lives once they finish school. And that is what people do in rural areas of Africa. But I also understand in Asia, in Nepal, in India. In fact, even in this country, you want your kids to be successful, you send them to school, right? Even those who want to play in NBA and play sports, you want them to go to school so they can get a degree and better themselves one day. So my parents are not illiterate. They knew what they were doing, and they sent all of us to school. But to get us to school, how did they do it? In Uganda, school is not free. You pay. In addition to pay, you buy your uniforms. You buy your books. You walk up to 7.5, sometimes 10 miles one way. Yes, I saw that face. Every day, Monday through Friday. So for the 2 parents who are economically poor in a village where you don't have transportation, you don't have electricity, how did they do it? Every time we are going to school, something in our house had to give. It could be a chicken sold so you can go to school. It could be a goat, a cow. By the time I finish high school, my parents were cutting our land so I can finish high school. And I remember every morning my father would wake up early in the morning, prepared. I think Sarah left me here a prize of a pencil. And Dad would line all 5 of us in front of the house, time to go to school, and he would bring 1 pencil, cut it. 1 for the pink baby, that was me. There's you, Jackson. There's you, Faida. There's you, Christine, and Babazi, and Frank. For a 1/5 of a pencil is all we had to go to school. Because when you showed up at school with your 1/5 of a pencil in your hand, the teacher would never send you home. But the day you come to school and you don't have that pencil in your hand, the teacher will call your name. If you don't have a pencil, say, okay, go get your pencil. And many children, their dream of education ended that morning when they didn't show up with a 1/5 of a pencil. Now, this was 1974. 2015, as I speak to you at Central Michigan University, a child tomorrow in my village will drop out of school because they can't afford a 1/5 of a pencil. That is what stands between breaking the cycle of poverty and a child. That's what's standing between a parent getting an investment for a future house, for a future suit, for a future pair of glasses. What stands between that dream is a 1/5 of a pencil. So when I say be the change you want to see in the world, I'm not saying go and become Bill Gates. I'm not saying go and become Barack Obama, Warren Buffett, and give millions of money, Bill Clinton, Clinton Foundation, and Hillary Clinton is in the news these days. I'm not saying be the Rockefellers. I'm saying go back in your bag, get that 1 pencil, cut it 5 times, send those 5 pieces to a child somewhere in Russia, in Nicaragua, in India, and be that change, because their dreams are ending in 2015 because they don't have a pencil. And this is true. Go back and Google it. There's a huge organization that started in New York called Pencils of Promise. I think he had me talking and took my idea and started this $1 million organization now. Pencils of Promise. A 1/5 of a pencil. So knowing that as a child, watching my friends drop out of school, the girl I had a crush on as a young boy dropped out of school in level 5 because they sent her to get a pencil and she never got a pencil. That was my first crush as a boy. Like, oh, she's cute. She never came back. Then she got married at 14 years of age. Then her husband married a second wife and left her. Then she got sick and then died. My crush died. I'm married now, I still talk about it. And Tabitha looks at me like, oh my goodness, get over it. The point is, she never got a chance. Her children have come back to go in a school that I built in the village. And I know her children. 1 boy, 1 girl. Just because there was no 1/5 of a pencil. So my parents raised us. I went through school. 1/5 of a pencil was turned into pens. I finished, went to university. All 5 of us are thriving. Big brother Frank is the big boy in the family. 3 sisters in between. I am here, I'm the pinky, and my sisters still call me the pinky, the little boy who never got the pencil with eraser. Because my dad also had a system to make sure that the oldest child gets credit. You always got a razor as the oldest child. And I was born a pinky, I'm still a pinky. I never got my eraser. So now I don't use any pencil unless it has a razor. But I also joke with my sisters, because I never got erasers, I learned how to write clearly so I don't have to erase anything. Now I'm an author of 3 books, and none of them have written anything because they erased too much. But here I finished university and studied social sciences in Uganda and got an opportunity to come and study human rights law at Columbia University in New York. That was 1994. January 14th, 1994, I walked out of JF Kennedy with a short-sleeved shirt and flip-flops. Bam! And the cab driver looked at me and said, "Where is your coat?" I said, "What coat?" I said, "It's winter in America." I said, "What's winter?" He laughed at me. He put me in a car. He drove me on 391 Broadway Street in New York and bought me a coat. And I've never seen that man again. The first compassion welcomed America from an immigrant from Senegal who was still struggling to speak English, gave me a coat and left me and never came for a return. So why do I do what I do? Because I've been given so much. And I give forward. So I'm at Columbia University. Everything's great. They give me a stipend. I'm thinking I'm going to finish school, find me a woman to marry, buy me a red car, $2, work for United Nations, and life is going to be good. While I'm at New York, my brother died of HIV/AIDS. The firstborn who took all erasers, bam. The following year, in 1997, my sister died of HIV/AIDS. Left a son. My brother left 3 children. And here I was in New York City with a career cut out to become a diplomat, work in the United Nations, go to Switzerland, and be a rich diplomat ever, bring my parents over. And tragedy hit. When that tragedy hit, I made a decision. Instead of going on this trajectory and become the person I had mapped out to be, I'm going back to my village. And I'm going to do something for children left behind because of HIV/AIDS. That's when I returned and built the first school, free school for children to go to, children who would attend without paying a penny, children who will attend and get a pencil with eraser, children who will get free books. And Nyaka was born in 2001. So for the next few minutes, I'll take you into Nyaka. I'll maybe convince you to come to Nyaka one day through Utopia volunteers. And then I will stop and Paul will start talking. Nyaka started in 2001 as a school for children who are orphaned because of HIV/AIDS. And the whole story is recorded in this book, A School for My Village. And that picture in this book is how the school started. 1 room, no shutters, no floor, no PS system, just 1 room and bare bricks. With determination to educate children no matter the circumstances. Jimmy Carter wrote on the back of my book and said, the book shows you how to turn tragedy into hope for others. The death of my brother and my sister were a catalyst. I had to make a choice, either sit down and complain the rest of my life, how It's unfair to lose a brother and a sister or do something for those other children who did not have an uncle left to care for them. So I went and built a school, one small school. And then the vision started unfolding. People in the village started looking. There is actually an opportunity to send a child to school without paying, and they will still be successful. But as soon as school started, the community realized it cannot just be education because these children are walking up to 10 miles to come to school. So what did we do? We went to the biggest asset on the African continent, grandmothers and women. Yeah. Grandmothers have so much power. Every child will tell you stories about their grandmothers, and I will tell you some during question and answer. We went to the grandmothers and said, we know you have lost your children. We know you are suffering and cry every day. But here is another generation of children who need a place to live, a place to stay. Can you please love them and provide them where to live? We will give them education at school. We'll give them food at school. We'll give them health care at school. We'll take care of them. We just want them to come to the hands of a loving, caring person. And no one does it better than grandmothers. Today we are working with 7,000 grandmothers, raising 43,000 orphaned children. We have not only built one school, we have built 3 schools. One called Nyaka, another one called Kutamba, the third one is a vocational and secondary school. We have 697 students enrolled in these schools. We have built infrastructure in the community so every child who walks in is successful. Successful because they get all 5 basic needs every child should get. I am a father of 4 children here in Michigan. I make sure they get everything they need, not want. What they need, they get. Food, every day they get. Every day my 43,000 children in Uganda get. Housing, every day my children in the house get their housing. Make sure the house has a roof, I check. And every day our 43,000 children go in grandmothers' homes and have a roof over their head. Education. Every day my children in Michigan learn. Every day our children in Uganda either go to the library or have a Kindle, they have to read something. Clean water. Every day my children in Michigan have clean water. Every day we have worked with Rotary International and many partners to build clean water systems for these villages. When my girls hit puberty, they will have sanitary products. I make sure our girls in the village have sanitary products, because that sometimes is what stands between their dream and the obstacle of going. One, sanitary, one tapoon determines whether the girl is going to be successful or not. They don't know tapoons. Don't worry about that. Even the recyclable, reusable sanitary product, they don't have. You cannot walk 10 miles to school when you don't have that sanitary product. That day, your dream ends. We make sure they get it. Library services, so education, health care, housing, employment, and food. The food, we have a farm. So that is the pillar, the 5 pillars of our project. And this is where Utopia Foundation comes in with volunteers. People ask me, what will I do when I arrive at Nyaka? And I say, what do you want to do when you take this whole trip from your comfort of your home to a different country in my village? You love to read? We make sure you read with children. You love to smile? We make sure you sit and be goofy with a child. Remember, these kids have no mom and dad. They have never had those goofy moments. Mom died when they were 5 years old. We can't deal with the tragedy in old age. How do you think a 5-year-old deals with it? I'll tell you how. They go to the grave with a hammer and they start digging on that grave every morning, hoping mom will come back if they take too much soil off that grave. All they need is a friend. Somebody to say it's going to be okay. Assurance will love you no matter what. I can tell them every day, but they have seen me also all their lives. All they need now is Debbie. I'm from Florida. I heard your story, and I'm here to assure you it's going to be okay. That sentence will take a child through adulthood because they have a friend in Florida. All right, now I've convinced you. And it is true. You like sewing, we'll put you to a sewing machine. You like teaching women, we like you to teach. You are a medical doctor, we'll put you to work in the clinic. You like to make food, we'll teach you how to make lasagna, and that pie, the Michigan pie that you are so proud of, has been in a family from grandmother to grandmother to grandmother. Now you can teach the kids how to do it, and we'll provide you tools. We have a guest house, we have a security all taken care of. All you have to do after this session is give your application to Debbie. Raise your hand like that. Give her your application, she processes you, and you come and change lives of children in Uganda. But don't only do it in Uganda. Do it in your community. Do it in Nepal. Do it in India. You are already the change this world is looking for, and today I urge you not to stop. Thank you.
Now I wish I had gone first. You know, the goal here is to sort of let you explore what's going on in other countries and the developing world. I think often in the United States we think we have an idea of what the world is like, and we just sent, actually she's a friend of mine, to Africa that reviews documentaries. So all day long she's reviewing documentaries and other movies for film festivals. She's done that for 10 years. And she went to South Africa, and she said, I thought that I had an understanding of what it was like. And she said, I had no clue. And she said, I've watched all these documentaries, I've talked to the people, but until I was there, I didn't understand. She stayed with a family, and she said, the family I'm staying with, I just became part of their family for those 3 weeks I was there. She said, I had never experienced hunger. We just run down to the store if we're hungry. And she said, so at dinner, we had whatever we had, and then we were done. You don't go to the refrigerator, and if you're hungry, you don't run down to the 7-Eleven. She said the nearest place to get something was 17 miles away by bus. And there was one place in those 2 counties that she was near where you could buy food. And so what's wonderful about volunteering is you really get to, we think that we know, but until we're there, we often don't. And so I'd like to talk first a little bit about the reasons for volunteering, a little bit about early childhood development, sort of rearrange some brain cells so that you have some understanding of what we would like from volunteers, so to make you a more effective volunteer, and hopefully at the end it will all make some sense. The first thing is, we know this stuff about early childhood. We know the importance of relationship. I mean, one of the themes of this conversation we've had for these last few days is about the importance of first relationship. And I always say that the first thing before you connect. And so part of that we all don't know is early childhood development. People, you can tell one because when they see a child, they get down like this. Everybody knows this posture. You're right at their level. And so you go there and you build that relationship. And the way you build that relationship also is by listening and talking, and so we'll talk about that. But right now, even though we know all this stuff, we let people fall through the cracks. And we know if they don't get nurturing, that's why our jailers are full. Because they didn't get love, they didn't get a hug, they didn't get somebody looking in their eyes. Jackson was just interviewed for before this, and he was asked, "What do you tell your children? Tell me about how you are as a father." He says, "The one thing that's most important to me is every day I say to my children, I love you." Every day. There's lots of children that aren't getting that, both in the United States, in the developing world, and in the developed world. So I want to talk a little bit about this. I'm going to tell this story because I just rewrote it, but everybody knows about the wolves and the Cherokee tale. So one evening, an old Cherokee told his grandchild about a battle that goes on inside of people. He said, "Grandchild, a battle goes on between two wolves inside of each of us. One is full of fear. The wolf tries to feel connected to others through anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, victimhood, arrogance, self-pity, resentment, dominance, violent talk, threats, violent actions, and domination. One wolf is full of love. That wolf feels connected to others by expressing joy, happiness, kindness, serenity, thoughtful listening, friendship, generosity, gratitude, compassion, helpfulness, equanimity, and living a life of character and virtue." The grandfather asked, or the grandchild asked, "Which wolf wins?" And the wise grandparent said, "The wolf that I feed in you, the wolf that your parents feed in you, the wolf that your teachers, friends, and others feed." And then the grandfather hugged the child and said, "Which one will you feed?" But it takes a village. It's not just about us. What are we feeding in the children? What are we feeding in people? My tradition is Buddhism. In Buddhism, the biggest kindness that you can give somebody is a smile, a sincere smile. And we think that we always have to have fireworks going on. And we know this stuff. And one of my goals is I call it squaring the period, or squaring the pyramid. So imagine the way it is today. Today, we have all these children that are born, and slowly people make it to the top of the pyramid, and they get to go to Harvard and Yale in the world of choices. All you live in the world of choices. You have lots of choices. And that's where we shower resources. We shower resources on the people we give. The money is spent on higher education. And I'm in an institution of higher education. And look at this beautiful facility. Think about if we spent the money that we spent on higher education on early childhood development. We would transform society. So how do we get that pyramid to be squared where every child makes it to that opportunities that get there for the people that sort of along the way they chose their parents very wisely. Their parents chose school for them. The parents said, "I love you," every day. And we could square it instead of making it so that all along the line people are sort of falling off and we're just taking who won. And so my goal is to have you to take that concept and think about that. How do we square that pyramid so that that child can make it? And as Jackson said, sometimes it's just a pencil. Sometimes it's just a smile. Sometimes it's just a getting down and just hugging the child. Is this working? I'm getting some feedback. Is it working well? Okay. So some key things is, where you live should not determine if you live. Where you live should not determine if you live. Your parents' economic resources should not determine your life success. The lottery of birth, who you chose as your parents, should not determine if you're respected, accepted, or loved. So let's talk about that a little bit from statistics, because there'll be some economists that watch this. Let's look at infant mortality. If you're born in one of those countries, instead of one of those countries, your chance of dying as a child are 50 times greater. Let's bring it home to Michigan. If you're born in the Detroit area, you have the same mortality rate, or infant mortality rate, as Mexico. So we have it right here, and we have it globally. And so for me, it's about action, and what volunteering is about, it's about action. And I call it not cared about, but cared for by action, not talk. People, they'll think that they did something because they Facebook post something. That doesn't do any good. I have my business card that I carry. I should have grabbed one before I came, but my business card that I carry, I just got back from the TED conference or global in Rio. But this is what I handed out, and the card says, "Pity fills no stomach, compassion builds no house, understanding is not yet justice." Posting something on Facebook doesn't change anything unless somebody on that other end does motivate. So it's not inappropriate to do that. But we need to do something. We don't need to say, "Oh yeah, I did something. I posted to all my friends." Or I had a beer about it and we talked about it. Boy, I'm so much smarter. So my goal in this talk is not that people will feel smarter, but you'll do something. Even if it's just sitting down with a child and making them feel love. Even if it's that simple. Now I lost my, So let's talk about volunteering in action. And so I've got sort of some rules of volunteering effectively. It's an action word. First, we don't want to be enabling. I don't know anybody that studied Haiti, but in Haiti, we basically, they were a rice exporting country. They had some problems years ago, and so we started subsidizing rice, sending them free rice. Now they do not export any rice at all, and they're net rice importers. They produce no rice. We've created dependency. So you don't want to be enabling, and we all know what enabling behavior is. And most of the people in this audience are probably recovering enablers because we're choosing a field or profession where you want to help people, and so after a while you realize that person has to help themselves. UCLA's great coach John Wooden said, if you do something for somebody that they can do for themselves, you've taken away from that person. The second thing, it has to be non-exploitative. It's, we eat our own lunch, and so we, just to use us as an example, you'll never see somebody in a Utopia volunteer with a t-shirt that says Utopia Volunteers. You'll never see us doing anything except celebrate what they've done so that we can maybe get more volunteers and more people motivated. But when we're in NIAC or we're at different sites, we want that relationship to be between that person, that volunteer, and the people that we're serving. It's about them. It's about that. We just want to support that relationship and be very much in the background and just make it easy. It's not creating dependency. So we're not going there and saying, "Oh, here, we're going to help you with food." Pretty soon we wonder why there's no local grocery stores. Or we're wondering why that local grocery store that woman that was making bread on the street corner is no longer there because we put her out of business. And then we're not dislocating local help. In this industry, you get to meet people, and I met this man. He worked for a TV evangelist that would raise $125,000 to build schools in India for children that would house about 150 people. So he'd raise $125,000, and this man was in charge of, after he was hired, to build these schools. We found it only cost $5,000 to build these schools. It was $125,000, $120 in marketing, have to pay the executive, had to pay the preacher, had to pay the TV time. And so this guy just decided to go out and build schools for $5,000, and very successful at that. One day he got a phone call or an email that said, we've got this nice building you built, but we don't have any chairs or desks. And so the man wrote back or emailed back, "Well, what would you need for chairs and desks?" And he got a letter back. We need $1,246. And he's thinking, $1,200 for 150 desks and 150 chairs? How could this be? So he wrote him back and said, "Please tell me, could you send me what the invoice would look like? What are we buying with this?" So we got this long list, 184 screws of this type, 184 nails of this type, 24 board feet like this. They were going to build it themselves. Is there any enabling there? They're doing it themselves. The local community. when Amy and I, my wife and I, my father and mother-in-law said, you guys need, you've been married for a while, you got all these kids, you need a vacation, why don't you go? So we take our vacation to Haiti thinking we're gonna have a week together. Well, we end up, the nun has the women sleep in this part and the men sleep in this part. So it was, and we took cold showers, but we did it, it was really fulfilling. But one of the things was, one day we were asked to go to this, the sponsors, we had some other things we were doing, but one day he said, why don't you come to this and paint schools? So we were there and we were painting schools, and Amy, my wife, and I chatted about this, but there was this one girl that just kept watching me, and she had her nice uniform on, and I handed her the paintbrush, and she started painting. And every time I get up, but Amy said they should be painting it themselves. So they're taking ownership in that. The local community should take ownership in that, where we're either in partnership, and not us going there as white Americans thinking that we're doing good. Maybe we need to provide the paint and the paintbrushes and be in the back clapping and encouraging. But that girl, I will always remember her face of her painting stuff and trying to make sure she didn't get on her clothes. And actually, it's kind of my goal after a while was that every one of them have their parents mad because they had paint on their clothes. And then the last thing is being, humble and not assuming and asking. So now I want to talk about, I'm going to come back to this, but I want to talk a little bit about this Jewish sage that talked about giving. And he's about 900, he'd be 900 years old today. But he had like this system of what giving is all about. And I'll read it very quickly to you. And eighth is what he would consider the least best way to give. And then number one is what he considers the highest form of charity. Donations that are given grudgingly. Donations when one gives less than he should, but does so cheerfully, when one gives directly to the poor upon being asked, when one gives directly to the poor without being asked, donations when the recipient is aware of the donor's identity, donations when the donor is aware of whom the charity is, but not who the source of that money is, giving assistance in such a way that the giver and the recipient are unknown to each other. And then he considers the highest form of charity where I call it sort of a partnership. But I want to read his words because I think that they need to be evolved a little bit. The highest form of charity is to help sustain a person before they become impoverished by offering a substantial gift in a dignified manner. Now think about squaring the pyramid. Think about how we spend resources. We know where to spend them. The first trimester to 5 years. By helping them find employment or establish themselves in business, so not in, helping them to find their own way, to be successful themselves. The one thing we discovered in Africa is if that mother has a job, she's going to put her kids in school. Often not the father, but the mothers we for sure can depend on. They have a job, they have money, they're going to revolve around their child. If they have trouble sustaining themselves, then everything sort of breaks down. And so I love this, is how do we get this person on their feet? So to me, what volunteering in the highest form, what this really is about is basically simply the phrase, how can I love you better? Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist equivalent of Billy Graham, says the most important thing that you can ask somebody you love is, how can I love you better? Now think about the vulnerability of that. I ask Amy that, she says, well, I wish you were 6'2" and handsomer. So I might not be able to answer that. But I can give her flowers. Or if I'm a Rotary, I can pick on Rotary because I'm a Rotary. Or if I'm a Rotarian, I can say, oh, you know what, this community, look, these women are walking 3 hours to get water and then 3 hours back to bring that water. Why don't we build a well so they don't have to do that? Seems like we've helped them, doesn't it? None of you have jobs anymore. Aren't you happy? You all been outsourced to a well or to a computer. We've taken away their value to the community. What are they going to do? Go work at a fast food joint? Go to a library? We've taken their worth away and their value away. I was telling this story to a friend that worked in Mozambique, and he said we built a well, and we were really proud of ourselves. So we went back to inspect that well a week later, and the well was completely filled in and so we asked the local woman, why did you fill that? Well, what happened? They said, we filled it in because we liked walking those 3 hours to get the water, and we could talk and chat and be with our children, our family, and our husbands beat us when we're home, and they're telling us to do stuff, so we don't like it, so we filled it in. Nobody said, how can I love you better? How can I really help? When Amy and I were in Haiti, the hospital administrator there was showing us rooms full of donated goods from hospitals and people of just full of syringes and all of this behind plastic. One room had a great big CAT scanner, some giant machine covered in plastic. And I said, I go like this to the because I don't speak French or we had a language barrier, and he just, but a nice, actually pretty good English, he explained, Paul, we get this big equipment, it's $1 million. We don't know how to use it. We have we don't have the electricity that will turn it on. And then we're walking along, and we walk by these stairs. I say, what are those stairs to? He says, well, that's the upstairs. I said, well, you aren't putting people upstairs? He said, well, no, we don't have any money to fix the stairs. I said, well, how much would that cost? $5,000. Nobody said, how can I love you better? He just needed $5,000. As I'm saying that, the guy that was driving us around in Haiti says, yeah, my wife and I, my baby was born right here on the front. He wasn't even born in the hospital. There wasn't any beds. And the baby was born on the front stairs of the hospital. Right there, thankfully it was grassy. Think about that. How can I love you better? So ask. And then listen. We need to listen. And it's interesting, not to personalize this, but years ago I got invited to go hang out with a bunch of Tibetans for some ceremonies with the Dalai Lama. And because I was not trained in that tradition, they gave me this book that was about this thick to read so that I wouldn't be that dumb. But I pulled the book out and I started rereading it, and there was a whole chapter on this about how you can reach enlightenment by listening to yourself and listening, really deep listening. And we don't want to do that. We want to be telling or expressing all the time. But there has to be that give and take, that deep listening. So the developing world needs you. I don't know which volunteer came back or who came back, but we found out about this organization in South Africa where it's an orphanage. Imagine 5 rooms, each with 10 infants in it, each with 1 caregiver for each 12-hour shift. That's it. So you have 12 hours, you've got 10 crying babies, you're supposed to feed them, change them, keep them clean, do the laundry, do everything. Oh, the electricity went out. Oops. Oops. This one has diarrhea. Oh, that one has diarrhea too. Oh, you don't have any diapers. Well, we can just use those blankets. Oh, the blankets have to be washed, don't they? I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 1-year-old, and they seem to think that their job is to get sick at the same time. That's hard enough, and Amy's there to help, and we have help, and I can call my mom. Nobody to help. So you think that there's not needs out there where you could help? I hate numbers, but there's 153 million orphans in the world. When I changed my 2-year-old's diaper, I think, who's thinking about the 5 factors as they are being changed, those 53,000 or 53 million orphans? Who's saying, I love you to them? Who's saying, now I'm going to, pull your pants down so I can change your diaper? Who's saying, I'm pulling this over your head? Who's cooing at that child? Who's looking at that child? Who's doing send receive with that child? Nobody. Who's going to that crying child? 153 million orphans. Now let's bring this down to scale, because often when we see big numbers, it really messes with us. If every church in Michigan would take one of the children, if you took all the children in the foster system, if every church in Michigan would adopt one child from the foster system, there would be no children in the foster system. That simple. My wife Amy likes to say, if that little orphan baby was on your front porch when you got up that morning crying, and there was a note that says, please take care of me, you'd say, it's meant for me to take care of this child. But because that child's 10,000 miles away, 5,000 miles away, in another country, or 5 blocks away, we just go on with our life and say, aren't I a good person? I did this and that. And we are all good people. But it's about action. It's about doing something and being uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable. So the other thing that's really important is that we're culturally sensitive. And so we use Christian memes, but if you do go, it's really important that we look at the culture there and respect the culture. One of the most inspiring things about this has been to me was yesterday when how many people were at the Harambe Toto chat. But think about what we can learn from Africa. They have lots of poverty there. They have lots of solutions. We can learn a lot. We have poverty here. We can learn how to help with that. We can learn so much from each other by listening and that mutuality. So, let's just look at religious and cultural things. In Africa, you got Christianity and Islam, which dominate in Asia. You got strong Buddhist, Hindu. In South America, Christianity is very, very strong cultural influence. But think about this when you're I love St. Francis's words. Sometimes when I preach, I use words. And often you'll see in Christian cultures, in the developing world, things that you think are not really channeling what Jesus probably would have said. You'll see, what to us would be probably considered being way too harsh in the treatment of the children. So what are the memes that you use to help change that culture? First seeking understanding, but then saying, yeah, I noticed that you're a Christian. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about your faith. I love the saying in the Bible that said, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. So when you watch people often when they're hitting their child or doing something like that, they're not coming from a place of love. They're coming from a place of anger. They're expressing it's undisciplined discipline. But you're using the meme that they're used to help support that. So it's understanding that culture. But first listening and first chatting. So I'll just read this and then we'll be done and go to questions. Or you can read it and we'll just go to questions since I only have 10 minutes left. But basically, I think this sort of gets to the essence of it. And the essence of this is equanimity. The children in Africa, the children in Asia, every child needs our help. And there are people starving to death. There's like 35,000 children a day die of preventable diseases. They are our children too. They need our help too. So with that, I'll open it up for Jackson and I to answer questions. Okay, I'll read it. You can't read it? Okay, I'll read it. Sincerely, it seems that children, young mothers, and young families have little voice in our world. We wait to see who turns out well, and then we lavish education, jobs, and resources on those who make it. We don't, it seems to me, as a society, place a strong emphasis on creating strong, vital, relevant, sustainable communities that look to the future by emphasizing the physical, emotional, relational, intellectual, and spiritual needs of our future generations. Children are the future. IQ or intelligence alone is not what solves the world's problems and creates a peaceful world. Kind, compassionate, loving people, infused with knowledge and wisdom, are what will create a world where everyone can feel safe, loved, happy, and optimistic about the future. It's about feelings too. It is not about giving lip service to the children's needs. It's about giving real resources, love, time, talent, treasure, and intentionally treating each child, no matter what their status, where they live, who their parents are, as equally important, as equal in importance to all other children. They're all important. But I can tell you when my 3-year-old, or my now 4-year-old, is, or he'll correct me, actually he's 5, my 5-year-old Henry, when he's sick, he's going to get the attention. Because he's sick and he needs it more than Patrick, who's still sleeping, or William, who's still sleeping. We have children in the world that really need your help. Thank you. So, questions? Thank you, Debbie. I'll just repeat it. Okay, I'll be the runner and. Maddie, ask the question.
But I can still ask. Okay. I don't know about the rest of the people in this room, but you caught me at exactly the right moment. I'll be retiring, and I want to know what your requirements are. I mean, what are the specifics?
You know, it's interesting. Allison, who sits on our board, she says that we shouldn't call it volunteering. We should look at it as job placement or temporary agency or an employment agency. But what Debbie does is she looks at your skills, who's right behind you, and she does an assessment, and then she says, "Where's the best place to place you?" And the main thing is is trying to find someplace where you think where it fits. And I'll tell you where it fits should be, where do you feel like you're going to do the most good? And not where's it going to be most comfortable? And so, I mean, I think that would be the question that I would ask. And then she'll look at your skills and say, how can we use those? And then my belief system is that you just jump in and trust that it'll all work out. And you may be there for a week or a month, and you'll say, this just doesn't seem to be gelling with me. But don't give up if that's not gelling. You'll find the place where you're really thriving. When I was chairman of Safe Passage, which we took 500 kids off the dump in Guatemala City dump and had 100 staff. But the accountant that had been there for 7 years, Hanley Denning, the executive director, didn't have an accountant, so he volunteered to come for 2 weeks to get her accounting straightened out. Well, 7 years later, I met him, or 4 years later, but I mean, he stayed there to the end because he realized that not only did she need accounting, she needed some executive help. She needed, help with dealing with local governments. And so it turned out to be a long-term gig, but he went there for just thinking he'd be there for 2 weeks. So you just don't know. And so he had to fly back to Florida to take care of his personal stuff. And then he flew back and he just stayed. And when I talked to him about this, he's like, yeah, I keep thinking I'm only going to stay another 6 months, And after a while, he said, I said, well, maybe I'm just going to live here, And then to go on with that story, what was interesting is, so then one day, Hanley called me and said, Ed's got to leave. And I said, why? He said, well, he can't afford to stay because he had used up all of his savings to stay. And he had to have his blood cleaned once a month, so he'd have to go back to Florida to get his blood cleaned, which he had not really, I didn't know until I talked to him about this. But so for, I think, $285 is what he figured he needed a month. I said, we can take care, we can make sure that you get $285 so you can fly back to Florida and take care of things. That little bit of money was able to keep him as a volunteer forever there. And so you never know. So part of it's asking, part of it's communicating. How can I love you better? Are we asking those questions, that strong conversation? Does that answer your question or flog it to death? Okay, thank you. And I think actually that's the best, especially it's best for early childhood. We know that. So there's nothing better than you going and saying, I'm going to go hang out with those, I'm going to take a room with those 10 kids. And I'm first of all going to model the right way to change the diaper, the right way to do all of these important things that, that need to be done to those other caregivers and training them. Plus, I'm going to be able to be making sure I'm helping with attachment and teaching why all this stuff is important. So think about how much good you could do just without saying one word, just by modeling the appropriate behavior in those 10 those 5 rooms with 10 kids in each, or any place. She said not talking would be perfect.
Jackson, can you talk a little bit about what the future is for NYACA? Like, what are the next projects that you guys are working on?
All right. And please, when you ask a question, tell us your name. Yeah. Oh, Paul, I can't read it from here. So, again, I've seen research that says when you volunteer, you actually live longer. Yeah, don't be going out looking for medication to live longer. Just volunteer. Boom, your life expectancy goes up. It's true. Go research, Google it. So what's next for Nyaka? Nyaka is evolving, and as I shared, you will see that the model we have created is replicable. So our next phase in the Nyaka 14 years of life is to get it replicated in other villages, in other parts of Uganda. But as of now, in the next 2 years, we have a task of completing that vocational and secondary school. Okay, we have invested in their lives at an early age. We have fed them. They are now strong soccer players. They run miles and miles. But now they are getting in a phase where they are going to learn a skill. And then they have to face employment challenges and unemployment. So we are building a vocational school so they can learn skills they can use in the village. Things they can do right there before they go out to become surgeons and lawyers and accountants or cooks. We want them to learn new technology, use skills in agriculture, transform it into the modern agriculture and make money, learn banking and investment, take computer and robotics engineering. We are not stopping on little things, the village level things. We are opening these kids to the world. And that's where partnerships like we have with Utopia comes in handy. Because when you come in as a volunteer, you will learn their culture and they learn from you. It becomes an exchange. Every volunteer, 527 in 14 years, every single one of them who has gone to Nyaka comes back and tells us, I learned more than I gave. So be ready to learn.
Oh, thank you. Hi, my name is Linda. And first of all, I loved the quote that you said, how can I love you better? And I think one of the biggest challenges that I've heard, not necessarily throughout here, but at times in the past, where programs go in and try to say, this is what you need, or even providers go in and say to parents, this is how you're going to be a better parent. And we kind of heard that a few times. And so I think I just applaud you for that approach. So I guess one of my questions is, and I'm particularly interested in the grandmothers who are fostering these children. Has anyone asked the grandmothers, how can I love you better? And if so, have there been any volunteers who have supported the grandmothers in any way? And I'm a grandmother, so I love grandmothers.
I can answer that for you.
And if there isn't, that might be something at some point I would like to do in some way, just to be a support to grandmothers, although they may just support each other in some way. But I love to love the caregiver, because I think our caregivers throughout the world are just sometimes forgotten, and they need hugs too. So parents and other caregivers.
I want to tell a story about Paula and my mom. So a friend of mine that used to teach leadership at UCLA she considers her the grandmother's expert. She's a photographer and a writer and has gone all over the world taking pictures of grandmothers. And so just by chance, she was up in Traverse City, Michigan, because she's one of my mom's best friends. And we're at Cherry Republic in Glen Arbor. And Jackson's and his family are with us. And I finally put together that, and Paula had highlighted Jackson's grandmother project. And I got to just listen to two grandmothers grill Jackson, and which is what tends to happen. Grandmothers tend to be very good at being assertive. But what was interesting is they said, yeah, thank you for dumping these children on us, but we have no way of sustaining ourselves. And that was, so whether it was them telling or active listening or him soliciting, doesn't matter to me. But what he did is he said, well, how do we get them to have some economic resources in a non-enabling way? And so one way they do that is he had the grandmothers, because they need to stay home, they could do piecework, they could make jewelry, they could do different crafts. And then also, the other thing that I saw that sort of happened organically is getting those grandmothers together to sort of support each other too. Because nothing, as we all know, as I know as a parent, it's so easy to connect when we go into, my wife and I have lived in 8 houses in 9 years. The easiest way to connect to the local community is just to have kids in school. You can connect like that. And so the best way for grandmothers to connect is through their children. And so you have that sort of natural happening. But yes, that's something I know that's always on his mind and heart. But did I flog that to death, or did I get it right?
You did an amazing job. What I will just say quickly, the love of grandmothers. Now I'm tempted to say, actually, we haven't had that kind of volunteer, so you can come. But I'm a transparent guy. We have had volunteers doing that. But remember, I told you we have 7,000 grandmothers. And that is just a fraction. We turn them away, those who want to join. Many are turned away because we don't have resources and even meeting places to meet all their needs. But I will tell you quickly, when I was 9 years old, I fell from a tree, 200 feet from a tree, and injured my leg. The thing got in my leg from one side and came on the other side. And there is no hospital, there is no care in this village. I was taken to a clinic and spent there 6 months. Every single night, my grandmother was 80 years of age, walked every night and came and sat next to my bed in the hospital and read me a chapter in the book of Psalms every night for 6 months. Now, in a place where you don't have electricity, some of those nights are dark. Others, the moon is out. Others are rainy. Others are dry. No matter what night it was, she came. When I left the hospital, I'm cutting the story short, I found out that my grandmother did not know how to read. My grandpa would read for her all day long, and she would come and recite the whole scripture so her grandchild can live. We were 26 grandchildren, but every night for 6 months I took the time. She saved my life because I knew I was dying. Everybody in the village knew I was dying. The only person who knew I was not dying was my grandma. And her dream came true. So you can see the love of grandmothers. Come and give them love. They want to learn from you. They wonder how American grandmothers live. You wonder how a grandmother lives with 14 children in a 14 by 12 home. Those questions will be answered when you arrive. Debbie will take you through the interview. You come, you have the most fun you've ever had in your life.
I'm going to step in and say thank you, Paul, thank you, Jackson, and thank you, Debbie, because I think people will be coming to you next. Can we give them a round of applause?